You are watching All About Alpena. All About Alpena is produced by Alpena Marketplace Productions, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. daily. Visit us often on the web at www.allaboutalpena.com. Once there, you can email us with your thoughts, concerns, questions, and of course we have our updated schedule there. Or feel free to call us at 354-2295.
These days, current events unfold on a dozen channels. Headlines all seem to be shouting, and good news can be as scarce as a moment to relax. So let's turn down the noise this summer, unplug just a little bit, and head to a shelter from the storms of life. The historic port city of Alpena, located on the Sunrise Shore of Michigan. Only a few hours' drive, but miles away from the weight of the world. Nestled between a vast forest and an endless clear blue bay, where the wonders of nature are as welcoming as the local hospitality. We can explore more than 200 shipwrecks in the largest freshwater sanctuary anywhere. Count the stairs to the top of a lighthouse, or the masts that jut into the harbor sky at moonrise. Let's take a trip to the friendly, picturesque city of Alpena, a haven from the world that's pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Alpena City Council meeting, April 7th, 2014. Call the order, please.
Johnson? Nielsen?
Here.
Nowak?
Here.
Sexton?
Here.
Walagora?
Here. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from regular session March 17th, 2014. Any issues with that? Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address council tonight, with the exception of the public hearing on the opt-out of the odd year elections. So if you're here for opt-out of the odd year elections, just wait until I open that up. But any other comments, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records. Please. Steve?
Steve Schultz, and I guess for all intents and purposes, my address is 208 North First Avenue. I'm here as an employee, just to let everyone know that we've got the smartphone app for the city is up and on both markets, the Android market and the Apple iOS market, and ready for download for anybody to use. It's free, and it's going to be a work in progress. It's always a work in progress. Adding information, taking other stuff off. Some of it, I know there's been some questions already. I had staff, and some of the staff download it and kind of look at it. play with it a little bit, see what they thought of it. There's always gonna be changes on notification portions of it and things like that we can do. Right in the house here, I can log in and make those changes. And one of the things that was a concern right off is that some of like the shopping and the dining and things like that it advertises on there are not, I mean, they're some of them within the city, some of them are outside the city, some of them that are in the city aren't even mentioned on there. And that has to do with the fact that we're using a third-party Yelp for those things. And Yelp has only certain things to do. You know, we can't really tell them what to have on there. The flip side is we could take that out and make it our own. And the only issue with that is we would be constantly, editing that portion of it. You know, we would have to make sure that we've got all that in there, and then where would we ourselves draw the line as a city? Do we just advertise what's inside the city limits, or do we go out, maybe that's a topic of conversation for a later date. But right now, we chose just to use a third party, and then that way, they, whatever is on there. And if, other users can go in and add things to Yelp or make suggestions that, this business should be on there, or this business, and we can kind of go from there. But I guess as of right now, it's up and running. Some people have tested it out and, used the report an event or report an item, going through like a tree limb down or, things like that. We've tested that and it works, so the emails come to the departments and things. So I just invite everybody to, jump on and download it. I know there's a couple other Alpena apps out there. Ours is called Alpena, Michigan. It's made by My Community Mobile, so if you look that up, you can just verify that it is indeed the city's by looking at that. The My Community Mobile is the maker, and because of all the restrictions and all the things that Apple has on their side, the updates don't always happen as quickly. And so when you download it on the Apple side, you're going to see that it has not the correct logo on the icon just yet, and I have submitted that change to them, and they're going to make that change. And I noticed that I don't think it's completely up to date with the Android version right now. There's some other things missing on it that are in the Android version, but not yet in the iOS. So that takes a little bit longer to catch up, but I can make a lot of those changes live when they happen. So that's what's neat about the app, is it isn't just because we make an update, we don't have to push that update to everybody. If you have the app, it's going to update that app much like a web page, as opposed to adding content to it and then having to download it again. It's a live content kind of thing. So, and we are working towards getting our news releases on there. We have to kind of change the way we do it so that we don't have to double enter things. We can do it one way in one section, and then the app will also read it. So we're working on that. I asked them to kind of help me out with that a little bit and give me some guidance there. So, but so far everything's working good. So,
Excellent.
make that announcement. It's out there now for anybody to download. So.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Anyone else this evening? Okay, on the consent agenda, excuse me, we have bills to be allowed in the amount of $307,160.52. B is receive and file of the 2013 City Treasurer's Tax Roll Collection Report. C is the City Charter reappointment of City Assessor Jeff Shea, City Clerk Treasurer Finance Director Karen Ebert, and City Attorney Bill Piper for 2-year terms. D is City Council appointment of Assistant Attorney Dylan Wallace for a 2-year term. E is renewal of auditing services Straley, Lamp, and Crinsline PC July 1, 2014 to June 30th, 2015.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, no announcements this evening. I have 2 mayoral proclamations. Pardon me. First is Older Americans Month. Whereas Alpena, Michigan includes a large number of citizens aged 60 and older, and whereas Alpena, Michigan is committed to helping individuals live longer, healthier lives, and whereas the older adults in Alpena, Michigan have made countless contributions and sacrifices to ensure a better life for future generations, and whereas we recognize the value of injury prevention and safety awareness in helping older adults remain healthy and active, and whereas our community can provide opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals young and old by emphasizing the need to take action to safeguard themselves from unintentional injuries where they live, work, and socialize, providing information on avoiding leading causes of injury for older adults, which are falls, motor vehicle-related incidents, suffocation, medication overdose, and fire/burns, and helping older adults take control of their safety and well-being. Now therefore, I, Matthew J. Walagora, by the virtue of authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Alpena, do hereby proclaim May of 2014 to be Older Americans Month in Alpena and urge every resident to take time this month to recognize older adults and the people who serve and support them as powerful and vital individuals who greatly contribute to the community. And I don't know whether we have a guest to present this to. I didn't see anyone.
And we all volunteered to Don.
I wasn't gonna say it. Somebody probably would. My second one this evening is Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, Matthew J. Walagora, by the virtue of authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Alpena, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2014 as Arbor Day in the city of Alpena, encourage all area citizens to celebrate Arbor Day in our community and support efforts to protect our trees. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to promote the well-being of this and future generations. I believe there's a note for that. Okay, this evening we have a public hearing, which is option to opt out of odd year November elections. So I'll open the public hearing and get a report from Karen.
At the July 24th, 2013 council meeting, I made the council aware of one of several new election laws that was implemented by the state on March 27th of 2013. Municipalities now have the option to move the November general elections for mayor and council to the even-numbered years. We currently hold our city elections in the odd-numbered year November dates. On December 16th of 2013, a public hearing was held on this subject, as well as more information on the new law, and I attached my old memo. One citizen spoke in favor of opting out of the odd-year general elections, and one citizen spoke in favor of continuing to have the odd-year general election. Council requested more public comment be sought, so I had a request for public comment published in the Alpena News in January and February of 2014. One written comment was received that was in favor of opting out of the odd-year elections, and an email was received that was in favor of keeping the elections in the odd years. On the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks Forum, there were some discussions on the subject, with all positive results when they switched to the even-year elections, and I included those in your packet. As mentioned in my memo of December 16th, 2013, once a municipality opts out of odd-year general elections, they cannot opt back in at a later date. If council chooses to opt out of the odd-numbered year elections, a resolution is attached for your approval.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, I'll open up for public comment. Anyone with public comment on the option to opt out of the odd year elections, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records.
John Yates, 119 State Street. I think you should opt out, you should move to the even year elections. Because you have a higher turnout in even numbered years, and I think it would save the city money too, because you wouldn't have to go through the cost of having a special election.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? No. Any written comments received since what you've provided us?
No, the two that I provided.
two?
Yeah, one was for and one was against.
Okay. All right, that closes the public comment and open for council discussion.
Everybody jump up.
I don't, I can start. I mean, I've kind of bounced this around. We've obviously been well aware of this. I think last year is what Karen had said, December. I read I read all the comments that were sent into Karen by these other municipalities. I bounced it around a little bit when I was in Lansing, just with some of them. To be honest with you, I didn't run into anyone who had already changed it. I just had some leisurely discussion with some of the different mayors that were down there. I'd have to agree with the comments about the higher turnout in the even years. It certainly is a cost savings. It's a staff savings. Karen has been very specific about how much time it takes her staff to prepare. And when we looked at some of the other arguments for staying with it, I understand those too. I certainly understand them as a candidate because I was one of those once. And but I just, for me personally, everything that I've gone over and everything that I've seen, and none of the municipalities that responded to Karen said, "Oh my gosh, I wish we hadn't done this" or anything like that. So I'm inclined to opt out. To opt out of odd year November elections and just go with the even year and save some money. And I guess my personal opinion, by not having a lot of turnout in them as far as citizens, is that they're really not that concerned with it, or most people that approach me have absolutely no idea when my term is up, when is the election, a lot of people just don't know. So I don't really think we're even going to get a lot of, like some of these people said, we're not going to get a lot of people all upset because the majority of them aren't really
Don't care.
constantly wondering when the election is. So it might not even be noticed. That's all I got, I guess.
I guess I'll articulate the other point of view. I don't think it's unfair to say the main reason to do this is because it's cheaper. And I think that's understandable. That's part of our job to be good stewards of the community's money. It's also part of our job to do what's kind of in the greater interest of our community. So I guess as opposed to one or two reasons to change it, I'd like to give you 7 real quick, okay, of why we should stay the same. First, and I think it's probably maybe of lesser importance, is we did get elected for 4 years, and so personally I don't feel that great serving an extra one. If we had the option to knock it down and serve 3 instead of 5, I think that would be more palatable, but Karen's made that pretty clear that's not going to happen, right? Secondly, and probably one of my biggest concerns, is that local organizations that have millage requests will more than likely follow us to even numbered years because that's a cost savings. I don't see the school system or the seniors coming up with 10 grand to run them in odd numbered years. My fear of that is if you have 3 or 4 millage requests on a ballot that already has a lot of other issues, it's just going to be easy to go no, 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 no. Just check them off. So this saves the city money. I guess my fear is if we end up not passing some millage requests because they're all together, that we're probably losing more in the end. Third, you're going to have federal offices, state offices, local offices, millage requests, local ballot proposals, state ballot proposals, federal ballot proposals, and they're all going to crowd together. I think when you mix all those, it's the local issues that are going to be pushed off as a little less significant. In the big scheme of things, maybe it is, but I think for us that are part of this community, it's whether to sell this lot or whether to move forward with a project is a big deal to us. Along that lines, if you're campaigning, and Matt mentioned this, as a local candidate with all the campaign material from the power and the money that state and federal candidates have, we're just going to get drowned out. I think we're lucky to maybe get one piece of information out there, whereas maybe a state candidate can give one every other day, shows up at your house. So it's real tough for people to sift through that one piece of information about a local candidate versus all they're going to get flooded with. I think it's going to make it real hard for new candidates to get their message out, to get some name recognition, because they're just going to get drowned out. If nobody's heard of them, they're really competing with all those state and federal offices at the same time. You mentioned higher voter turnout, and you saw that in some of the comments that Karen gave us, that, we saw our numbers go up. I do think we have to consider that higher voter turnout is somewhat of a double-edged sword. Right now, voters who typically don't vote in local elections probably do so for a reason. And a lot of the time, I think they're not paying attention, they're not that concerned about it, they're more interested in state and federal politics. As they're in the booth for a state and federal candidate, they're going to have the local ballot there. And I question whether we'll have real informed decisions, because we're bringing in a population of folks who have chosen not to vote on local issues, and all of a sudden they're there. And so the numbers go up, but how educated are people about the actual local issue? I guess my biggest concern about it is we're nonpartisan seats. We're going to go into election cycles with partisan candidates. And I do think that besides the confusion, that we really open the door for partisan politics to continue to sneak into local politics more. We would all be running our campaigns at the same time, Republicans or Democrats, or maybe in town and plugging themselves. And I just think you're asking for it for local races to get more and more partisan if they run the same cycle as partisan races do. Not that hasn't snuck in before. I mean, it sneaks in, and I think that's detrimental to what we do. And I'm a little concerned that we're inviting that, more. And you also have voters that are coming in to vote Republican, they're coming in to vote Democrat, and then they're going to get these local offices, and whether people can step away and say, well, these are nonpartisan, that's different, or not, I don't know. So, yeah, we're gaining some immediate money, but you're looking at, I think, a small amount of money for a multi-million-dollar budget. And the things that we're risking, if we change, are they measurable? Probably not. But I do think we're risking compromising the integrity of some local races, and we're certainly risking millages failing. We're risking people being able to get their message out. So I guess I worry about the bigger ramifications. I think it's a legitimate argument to change it to even years. It is easier on staff. It is cheaper. But I know from live experience that what's cheaper and what's easier is not always the best thing to do. So I would certainly opt to keep it as it is.
I guess the thing that I agree with Sean. I think we just go unnoticed, and most people would not bother to educate themselves about the local issues and local people running what we really stand for, what we believe, and what we want to happen. It would just be a blind right down the ticket. And I don't think that's Alpena. We are nonpartisan. The other piece that bothers me is once you do this, you can't opt back in. Let's say we decide we don't really like it, we're not being heard, our library can't get its voice out when it's time for it to close, and all of the other things that we ask millages for don't see the light of day. Well, you can't opt back in. Once you do it, you're done. It's done. And I hate to see any community lock themselves into an important decision like that when everybody that we help as a city entity is at stake. A lot of our nonprofits, a lot of the things that we all count on, such as the library, could suffer greatly. And I think it's worth just holding off. We can always come back and revisit it every year if we want to, but we can't, once we do it, we can't take it back. So I would vote to keep it the way it is.
Karen, just to ask you a question real quick, do you know why we can't opt back out?
Just state law.
Just-
That's part of the law that they made.
It's right down the line, huh? Yeah, this is one that I've, questioned a lot and looked at a lot and stuff. And for me, it's like, if you're not in favor at this moment, it would be hard for me to say what would cause you to be in favor of it later. What would change down the line? I mean, we've all said I would prefer a shorter term as well. As far as the even years versus odd years, I like the idea of a stronger voter participation. I couldn't honestly say that, they wouldn't be informed. I mean, I think the Alpena voter is a very strong informed voter. They asked a lot of really good questions. It's been my experience that they understand what's going on. It's just a matter of when there's a lot of things to vote for, more people will come out and vote for everything on the item and inform themselves all the way down, in my opinion. So I'm in favor of opting out and going to that based on two facts: higher voter participation and the savings the city would directly see on moving to those even years. And as far as the odd years, we have both the township and the county are currently participating in even year elections. And if things weren't being found on their ballot, or they felt that their millages were going to be missed, they would be screaming to get into the odd years, and that's not the case. So my opinion is that we opt out of this and get into the even year elections.
Well, I agree with Sean and Susan. I was one that spoke against changing and getting rid of odd year elections. I just think that local issues are important to local people, and it's important that those voices are heard for our city. We have 6 millages on our taxes, on our tax bill. Those are important to us. To get lost in a partisan ballot would hurt us as citizens. And I don't think that $10,000 every other year comes out to about $1.25 a vote is worth getting rid of odd year elections at this time. So that's.
You get to be last, too.
May I be last?
It's only
I
fair.
disagree with all of this.
No, never mind, you had your turn.
It just seemed like that was the thing. Well, and I'm not here to change anyone's mind and doubt that I can. I kind of felt like I was being a little bit insulting to residents by saying that you probably have no idea how long my term is or when I'm going to be elected, but that's just what I normally get out on the street. But I do think that it's a bit insulting to say that someone would go in a ballot and because it was so long, they would just mark no all the way down or yes all the way down without reading. I think anybody that's going to take the time to go to the ballot in the first place and go in there is going to read everything that they're going to put a check mark by, but that's just my personal perception. So, but yeah, I had, and that's fine. I had hoped to be able to kick that over just to, like Mike and I both said, just to save some cost and some staff time. I just don't think that the other points are high enough, in my opinion, to be of grave concern. But being that looks like how we are, so unless something I might have said has sparked any kind of new thought track of the 3, then I would assume that we would take no action again.
We could do that, or, I think at the very least, in my opinion, I think at the very least we should, I feel compelled to at least make a motion to approve Resolution 2014-03, just so at least it has a voice.
Very well.
Second.
Anyone have any other discussion before we do? Alrighty.
Nowak,
Yes.
Sexton,
No.
Walagora,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Nielsen,
No.
Okay. Thank you. Report of officers, we have the annual monitoring reports for tax abatements.
I'm gonna try to summarize.
Yeah, it is kind of long.
A little bit. The city currently has 6 tax abatements: Lafarge, ATI, Elroy Steel, Dean Arbor, Duville Johnston, and David Nishaw. Annually, they are required to provide their investment in capital and employee status based on the tax exemptions received from the city. Lafarge has a 9-year exemption which began in 2006. Their projected costs for the capital projects were $6,220,000 real property and $68,780,000 for personal. The project is complete with the investment in real property at $10.6 million and personal property at $37.1 million. They exceeded their real property projected by $4.4 million, but fell short by $31.6 million on personal. And that's because they chose not to do a part of that project. That's when times were quite bad in Alpena. They projected 230 jobs would be retained, no new jobs created. At the end of 2013, they have hired 11 new employees and 6 temporary became full-time. Their employment level is at 210, with additional hiring forecast for 2014 because they said they will have a lot of retirement. ATI Casting Service was granted a 9-year tax exemption beginning September 18th of 2007. They projected $10.5 million in personal property and completed the project with a total investment of $14.3 million. As we know, the plant is no longer in operation and there are no employees. Elroy Steel was granted a 12-year tax abatement beginning December 31st of 2007. They projected $325,000 in capital investment, and 4 jobs were projected to be retained and 2 new jobs created within 2 years. Their final investment was $388,663, and they have maintained 6 employees through 2013. Dean Arbor Ford was granted a tax exemption in December of 2011. Projected capital was $2.25 million, with 4 jobs retained and 2 new jobs created within 2 years. Their final total capital is $3.01 million, and the monitoring agreement states I caught one mistake on the memo I made. The monitoring agreement states there's 27 and a half employees, but I failed to add in another full-time and 1 part-time they hired in 2013. So now they are up to 28 full-time and 2 part-time. Duville Johnson received a tax exemption on December 31st of 2011. Their projected capital investment was $351,372 real and $75,900 personal. 7.5 jobs were projected to be retained and 5 new jobs created within 2 years of completion. They have invested $380,316 in real property and $279,947 in personal. They have a total of 13.5 employees. David Nishaw was granted a tax exemption December of 2011. Projected capital was $200,000 and 15 new full-time jobs projected and 3 part-time. The capital investment was finalized at $210,000. Los Cuatros Amigos no longer occupies the building, but fortunately a new restaurant, Local Burrito, has moved in and opened for business last week. They currently have 9 full-time employees. The restaurant will obtain a liquor license in approximately 2 months, at which time the bar and upstairs level will require more employees, and hopefully they'll get up to the level prior. And then just in summary, ATI Casting has not fulfilled the requirements of their personal property tax abatement, which was PA 328. It doesn't allow us municipalities to request a revocation of the tax abatement from the state. The only recourse would be a lawsuit. Since ATI has put the property up for sale, the ultimate goal is to place a new business in that location. David Nishaw's building was vacant for a very short time before he was able to place another restaurant, Local Burrito, in that building. All of the above companies have completed their capital investments and all have invested more than projected except Lafarge, though they still invested over $47 million. On the employment side, Elroy Steel, Dean Arbor Ford, and Duville Johnson have met or exceeded their projections. The 6 companies listed above represent over $66 million in capital improvements. One of the major goals of abatements is to assist companies to reinvest and stay in the community. The other is job retention and/or creation. Though ATI and Los Cuatros Amigos had a successful startup, they were unable to sustain their companies and the jobs that went with them. Economically, the city must decide if the impact on the city's property tax revenue is adequately offset by the capital improvements and/or additional jobs resulting from the projects. With the new state laws on eliminating personal property taxes, the city will need to consider future abatements. There is no final determination from the state on whether cities will be made whole on the personal property tax revenue that will be lost. So overall, overall it is successful. Even through some hard times, a lot of them have struggled, but they've made it through.
I guess with the question I have is with the ATI Castings place, the building is over, have they sought any assistance from anyone here locally, the city or Target or anyone to look for anyone to help fill that building?
Target has been and is involved
Okay.
in working with them.
Okay, so they're actively seeking to sell it
Yes.
then. Okay. And I know, I was out in the audience when the original abatement went through, and there was talk at that time about looking into ways to do like a savings for abatements. In other words, holding the money until all the criteria was made. Has there been any work on that? Is that possible or just totally not allowed under the?
I think from what I see, looking at the state laws, once the abatement is approved, the state sets when it goes into effect, and that's when it goes into effect at that time. So in essence, they are getting the abatement with, even prior to them meeting any criteria we set for either capital investment or jobs. That's why they have, the state, except, I think the IFTs can be revoked, but only by the state. And so they generally recommend, and we have gone this route, of having stronger development agreements or agreements that go with it, that in essence, in the future would have benchmarks. Now, we haven't done any in a while, but in essence have benchmarks, that if you don't meet these, then you will repay, rather than saying that, as we have in the past, that we have the right to use whatever means legally available to get those monies back, those abated taxes. That really ultimately means the only way is through a lawsuit, which can be expensive and also just time consuming. By rewording it differently, they're saying they will repay if they don't meet those benchmarks, unless the city decides, the council, to waive it for whatever reason. It's a little harder for them then to argue not to do it, because they have signed off saying they will. The worst one is the personal property, because it is very front-loaded. It is 100% abatement, and that's what ATI had. So it is really right from the get-go, you're abating any personal property they bring into that district, into that property. And there is no way to revoke it under the law. That's why you need a strong agreement, which at that time was not as strong as what it could be. The fact is, they're gone, they're not coming back. They have no intention of utilizing the property, and that's where Target is working with them to sell the property and hopefully get it into active reuse. That will be the best result that we can get. Otherwise, it will expire in, I can't remember what year. It was a 9-year abatement. I think there's like 3 years or whatever to go. So even right now, if another company comes in, actually what I've been told is they need to reapply for that, balance. And so then, again, the council can look at that and decide whether or not to do it.
2016.
Okay, 16, so it's 2 years, but they do have to basically apply again to council for that. So it does give us some leverage and an opportunity to, tighten up the requirements. Now, you could also extend it or just leave it, but as of right now, with all the laws passed, starting in 2016, those abatements really become unnecessary, becomes a moot issue as personal properties begins to be phased out of industrial properties anyways. So our thing would be, one, you wouldn't need that abatement, And I wouldn't recommend probably doing any in the meantime, because then within a very short period of time, they'll be gone.
I guess I would ask you about further into the future, and so those, abatements are meant to attract companies or attract investment, and we typically kind of dangle waving the personal property tax as the carrot. Well, without that, have you put any thought into, or maybe we should start putting some thought into, what else can we include in abatement to entice companies to come here, since we don't have that anymore? Or should we
Well, the
move
one
on?
that's been there for years and we've used is like the one with Lafarge, Duville, Johnston, is the Act 198, which is a 50% abatement, which also is on real property as well as personal. So even if the personal property goes away, they're saving that technically anyways. They could still get a 50% abatement on any physical improvements they make to the property, on the real property, for up to 12 years, I think it is. And that's, we have a criteria set to determine how many years you get based on investment and job creation. Usually retention gives you no extra points. It's only on creation. So that's already in place. And that's probably for industry, that's the main abatement that's out there. We have never, until ATI, ever used PA 328. In fact, we had to scramble to basically create criteria and some form of a process and a program, because the state law itself was so general. It was like a page and a half. And I did work with Treasury, and they helped a great deal. But that's the only time we've ever used it. And at this point, I wouldn't recommend doing that one again. There are commercial abatements, such as we did use for Dave Neshaw. Those are out there. Also, Dean Arbor has used those in conjunction with their brownfield for their development. So those are out there too. There are 2 or 3 different ones for commercial.
And the benchmarks are in place for those.
Well, generally, one, they have a shorter period of time, and they've often been tied to brownfield, so we've looked at the total package before whatever we would recommend. They're limited from 1 to 10 years generally, but at least the ones we've done have all been tied, well, I shouldn't say that. Neshaw's was not, Dave's with the restaurant on State was not tied to a brownfield. However, because of the size of it, we did limit the length of time and recommended that to the council. As we do more of these, because we hadn't done really commercial in quite a while, now that we may be doing more of those, it probably makes sense to set some criteria for those, because they're generally between 1 and 10 or 1 and 12 years.
Thank you.
All right. Do you need a receipt and file on that, or?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Okay, next up is bids. Bid
Take it away, Rich.
harmonious, bit of something, detaching bids, bituminous.
On April 1st, 2014, the City of Alpena received an open bids for the bituminous patching for the 2014 construction season. This is a project that we bid every 2 years, and it is for as-needed asphalt patching out there throughout the city for as many water main breaks as we've had and everything else this winter. 2 bids were, bid documents were sent to the 2 local firms who do bituminous patching, and both of them bid. East Shore Asphalt Paving bid $48,064, and Goodrich Trucking bid $64,875. These are estimated quantities of what we typically use throughout a year, and depending on what the patch is for, where it's located, it may be charged to local streets, it may be charged to major, sewer, water, wherever the work is done is where it's charged to. So there is no set line item where this is entirely paid for, it's distributed throughout the budget.
East Shore has been our contractor for the last, I believe, 4 years, and has done a good job for us. It's my recommendation to city engineer that we award the HMA bituminous patching contract to East Shore Asphalt Paving for the as-bid unit prices totaling $48,064. And that is actually a slight reduction from 2 years ago.
Is it like an up to amount on the 48,000, or the 48,000 is what they get?
No,
and then whatever?
it's depending on the size, the prices vary depending on the size of the patch. Smaller patches, obviously, they have to bring a crew in, so it's a little bit higher per ton in small patches. But it's an estimate. This year, quite frankly, we may go over that quantity because of the number of patches and repairs that we have to do out there. Some years we're under, some years we're slightly over.
So the bid cost, just so I can be clear, because I think I understand your question, but the bid cost, $48,064, is not what we're gonna spend. That's just because you wanted apples to apples, so you gave them bid on this, like you just picked a year, let's say it was last year, and said bid on this.
We
And
look
then-
at what our average use has
So it
been.
gets, okay, that's where the number comes from.
And that's why we recommend to award it based on the as-bid unit prices, because we use those unit prices for the contracts.
You want to do that?
I move we award the HMA bituminous patching contract to East Shore Asphalt Paving for $48,064.
Second.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Communications and petitions, we have Target's quarterly activity report. Mr. Chairman?
All right, thanks for having me tonight. I started out in the report that I provided you in your packets by outlining our current Small Business and Development Center activity. It started slowing down late last year, and it does right this, the first quarter remains below that of 2012 and 2013. But the business counseling that we are giving and the loans that we are making are substantially, I'll say, stronger in nature and being used more or less for business expansions here in Alpena than they are for Starbucks at the present time. And we're seeing that as a positive economic indicator. The business that we have helped in the past are growing, getting stronger, and we're working with other financial institutions to help grow them. Over the last 3 months, we've met with 60 clients and provided 160 hours of prep and contact time for those clients. We've also closed 2 loans totaling $80,000. We're also looking at selling or the sale of 2 Target-owned properties. The first 2 include lots on Commerce Drive, and the second lot is located on Sportsman's Drive in Alpena Township. Both transactions include the plans for construction of new business facilities in those areas. We also, in our last update at year's end, communicated that our region's industrial firms are struggling to find qualified talent here in the region, are recruiting heavily outside of the region. That's just not a Northeast Michigan issue, it's really a statewide issue from a talent perspective. We're working with numerous workforce development organizations, including ACC, to try and find a creative, workable solution to that issue. I also placed in the report, as we're all aware, that we did not receive one of the FAA unmanned aerial system test site designations. And I wanted to stress again that that outcome was planned in advance. I mean, we had 2 outcomes. One was a yes and one was a no, and we had alternative plans made for each. Be assured that the project continues to move forward. We're working on it to establish the appropriate protocols for that to work. And recently, the county executed agreements with both our organization as well as Explorer Solutions that reinforcing their commitment for a successful outcome. Also, in an effort to appropriately communicate the significance of the Alpena County Regional Airport, we recently recommended to the county that they consider developing a web presence that more aptly represents the scope of the facility that's there. They've taken that advice, and we're in the process of developing the site now and populating the site. It should be operational about 3 weeks, and it's quite impressive. It's very impressive. As you can imagine, we continue to entertain a substantial amount of interest relative to commercial development in the Alpena area. It's important to note that this interest isn't happening by accident. It's the result of outreach efforts we began in earnest more than 2 years ago. We continue and will continue to recruit corporate entities to the area. We're fully engaged with both the township and the city on these projects. One of the things I'll stress on one of those is no one's as anxious as I am to see success. But in many cases, offers, purchase agreements, due diligence, those extend 3-4 months at a time with no guarantees. So I guess we can all get gray hair together waiting, but that's where we're at. We remain dedicated to advancing the economic vitality of our downtown, and to that end, we're working with the DDA to identify short and long-term goals to establish a strategy that's necessary to really fill downtown, open spaces downtown and that kind of thing. And even we're considering offering specific business consulting services, primarily for the downtown retail businesses. And also, I said in our last report to the city, we outlined our need to establish a regional identity and also make certain that we're capitalizing on every opportunity in our region. We're pleased to report that Presque Isle County has pledged their support in advancing this effort, and they've allocated funding in order to take that concept from vision to reality. And in all likelihood, we'll be executing that agreement with Presque Isle tomorrow morning. Any questions?
No? Wow. You're off the hook.
It's easy.
Wow.
If I may, I would like to add one more thing. And in a few minutes, you're going to hear about an opportunity to create a new business and add a new level of activity in an area of our city. The concept is in keeping with the mission of our organization, and I'd like to know that you'd be aware that we support it, and I hope that you'll give it your utmost attention. Thank you very much.
Jim, before you leave, I have to say how impressive all your hard work is.
Thank
And
you.
how happy I am for all your successes. It makes us all look good.
Thanks. Well, the successes, we laugh about that because in the small amount of success that we do have, it takes an enormous amount of failure. So, to achieve.
You're
So,
doing a good job.
yeah, thank you. We're successful failures. Thank you.
Very good.
All right, thanks, Jim. And I think our lack of questions aren't derived from just, not only is that a complete report, but I think the council as a whole have been communicating and we're well aware with a lot of the things that you do. So certainly appreciate the report though as well. No unfinished business this evening. We have new business, 2014 tap-in fees.
Basically, every year, the city of Alpena increases the water and sewer tap-in fees that we charge for connection to the water and sewer utility. This is for new connections, or if a service has been shut off out of use for over a year. We do have the ability to charge this. A lot of times, if the service is still good, we don't have to do anything, we won't charge it. But if we do have to renew it, then we do. We typically, like I say, increase these every year about 3% to cover increased costs for materials, labor, etc. And that's what we've done this year. The proposed 2014 tap-in fees would be $2,743 for a 4-inch or 6-inch sanitary sewer connection, $3,267 for a 1-inch, $3,597 for a 1.5-inch, and $4,403 for a 2-inch. Anything larger than that, typically what we'll do is we'll charge them the 6-inch sewer tap fee or the 2-inch sewer or 2-inch water connection fee, and time and materials beyond that, just to recover our costs.
Rich, how many tap-ins do we really even have in a year? Typically, I know it would vary, but.
It really, yeah, it does. It really varies, but we typically will run in the, I would say probably 5 to 6.
Yeah, I didn't
new
think
taps
it
a year.
really came up all that often anyway.
Make one on that.
Okay. You want us to take action on that, I assume?
I move we approve the tap-in fee schedule for 2014.
Second.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Adjourned. Okay, next up is a lease between the City of Alpena and Performance Locker LLC for the use of Michikewis warming shelter.
The City of Alpena has been approached by Performance Locker LLC to establish a health and outdoor activity facility within the Michikewis warming shelter. Staff has worked with the Stutzmans, and both Casey and Mary Beth are present in the audience and will address council with a few comments after I'm done. We will be develop and manage the facility to establish a lease agreement which would be acceptable to both parties. The attached lease agreement is a culmination of those efforts and has been reviewed by City Attorney Bill Pfeiffer. When approached by the Stutzmans about developing this facility, city staff weighed the pros and cons of the proposal, including the loss of the facility for future rentals. In our review, the benefits for the community outweighed the loss of this facility for the limited rentals it sees each year. The benefits to the community include that the proposed use dovetails into the city's master plan for the Michikewis Starlight Beach Park, as developed several years ago, including development of outdoor activities within and throughout the park. The Stutzman's proposal includes perform improvements to the Michikewis warming shelter at no cost to the city, and which will be retained by the city at termination of the lease. Development and maintenance of a cross-country skiing trail within the park, along with equipment rental and training. Use of the park area for classes and activities associated with Performance Locker LLC's mission. Rental of water-related equipment such as snorkel gear and in the future canoes and kayaks. The Stutzmans have also committed to return a portion of their operational profits back to the City of Alpena for improvements of the park area on an annual basis. And the Stutzmans have indicated their commitment to further develop the Michikewis Starlight Beach Master Plan, where it dovetails into their mission statement. Now, they also provided a document today which was emailed to all the council members, plus there was a copy placed in each one of your seats that further outlined what their mission statement is, what they propose to do there. And the key thing that we looked at when, and Greg and I sat down and talked to them, was that the Michikewis Starlight Plan has always, part of that has always been to have outdoor activities in that park. It goes to the outdoor ice skating rink, a summer use in that area, a number of different outdoor activities. And we looked at this as an opportunity for people to see more activity out in the park, because, as they said in their supplemental document, over half of their classes, they want to try to use the outdoor area, the green area of the park to develop that in. And these are all positive directions for the future uses at the park and help to progress that Michikewis Starlight Beach Master Plan, along where the city has been unable to undertake it. The rental funds received from the lease of this facility will reduce the cost to the city for its operation and maintenance. Right now, it will not offset those costs. We have X number of costs, probably to the tune of about $8,000 or $9,000 a year just in gas and electric costs there. Water's on top of that, et cetera. But it will not offset all those costs, but it will reduce those. In addition, we're also going to look at putting, right now, the electric bill that's paid by the Parks Fund for the Michikewis warming shelter is based strictly on a percentage of the total bill that goes to the water plant. It goes into a transformer there, it's metered at that point, then splits off to the water plant, splits off to the warming shelter. In the past, we have not, it was city-owned, city-maintained, operated, there was no real reason to meter it. With this, we will be looking at putting in a separate meter so we can monitor how much electricity goes over there. And that's something that we will be talking with Performance Locker LLC at the end of the first year after we've had a chance to see what transpires there. After staff review of the proposal, is my recommendation to the city engineer that the city council authorize a lease Performance Locker LLC for the Mischievous Warming Shelter for the attached lease agreement. And again, I would ask Casey and Mary Beth if you have any comments you'd like to make.
My name is Casey Stutzman, and a little over 10 years ago, I made the choice to call Alpena home because I felt it was a conducive area to a much higher quality of life from the metro areas that I had lived in the past. During that 10 years, I made my living as a fitness professional, and during the last 4 years, I've had the unique and wonderful opportunity to travel all around North America and actually help to develop and educate other fitness professionals. And my time doing so has afforded me a lot of lessons, a lot of experience that I don't know if I would have gotten if I in a little bit smaller community, but I'm at a point in my life and my career where I'd like to bring this home, and I'd like to start to maybe fill some of the gaps that I've seen in fitness and wellness and activity in our community and across the nation, but definitely in our community over the last few years. So my goal, my mission is to take this and to create something that basically helps people unlock a life that they want to live. We want to help people get out and get active, and not just do a lip service by teaching them how to run on a treadmill, but actually take that extra step and get them outside, get them involved with activities, partner up with local people and organizations where we can not only help them in the training side, help them learn how to move and use their body pain-free and create better durability and longevity, but then actually start to connect them to outdoor activity and recreation and things that maybe they wouldn't have got into because there were some more barriers to entry. I also feel like my industry has a lot of holes in it. There's a lot of things that we missed the boat on. I think nutrition is a huge area. So we're working with a registered dietitian who will be part of our team working closely to help people fill in those gaps and holes. And also with a classically trained chef who's going to be helping people take action on that within their own home and their kitchen and making that whole experience something unique and wonderful. We also know that physical and emotional states are manifested in, mental and emotional states are often have physical manifestations. So we can't ignore the psyche, the emotional and the physical or the mental states of people. So we're gonna have a strong mind-body influence. And so the problems we've been running into is finding the perfect spot. Finding a place that has the specifications that we need to make this happen from the training environment, which is specialized flooring, high ceilings, locker rooms, big open spaces, good lighting, and we also need to be very close. If we want to make this mission a reality, we have to be close to nature. We have to be in a place that we can plug into these things and not have to shuttle people across town, but where we can walk out the door and instantly start to do some of these things that we want to talk about.
So Casey has adopted Alpena as his community and his hometown of choice. I grew up here. So when we were looking at a place to do this, he said, what about that abandoned building down by the park? And it took me a minute, abandoned building. And I said, oh, the Mischievous building. Oh, no, that would never work, no. And that goes to show sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees. But, an outsider's perspective, yes, this is a building that is underutilized. It has been vacant since the ice arena closed. It's only been used here and there throughout the year, very, very marginally. It's not really serving the purpose that it was meant to serve when it was originally built for the community. So looking into it further to see if this would even be a possibility, we just discovered that what Casey is creating with his team fits in perfectly with the building and what it was intended to be used for, and the park itself. It's no longer a swimming park. It's no longer has a nice beach. It can be a wonderful place that offers four-season activity, but it needs a little help. We know that the economy has been bad and the city has a plan for the park, but your resources and energy are required elsewhere. So we are asking that we can I have the opportunity and the privilege to step in and help make that happen. It's no secret that I love Alpena, and I don't take this privilege or this opportunity lightly. So in discussing it, we know that it wouldn't be right just to say, well, just let us rent it and call it good. We want this to be more of a partnership that brings something unique to the community that we can build and really showcase Alpena and showcase our natural beauty and what we have to offer. So in addition to some of the things that were mentioned, just above and beyond, we want to clearly show what value we would be bringing to the table. So there would be about $30,000 worth of improvements to the building that would need to be made. Example, some of the showers are rusted. They don't even turn on. Some of the countertops are falling apart. So it would need some updating, which we would do at our cost, and then that would remain with the building. Long after we're gone, it would belong to the community. Everything would be done appropriately. I've already talked to the building official and talked about what would need to be done and how to do that. Outdoor gear rental, we've all missed Summit Sports and have been hoping that there was another place like that would pop up. And when we were discussing it, we thought, well, why not this? Why do we need to wait and hope that someone else does it? This would be a perfect location. So we would be looking into things like paddle boards and cross-country skis in the wintertime, snowshoes, and not just offering the rental, but offering the ability to teach people how to use that if they have never done that before, or if it's been a while and they want to get back into it. Bringing four-season activity to the park. After Casey mentioned this the first time, that abandoned building, and I can't call it that, I was so offended. But then on my way to the grocery store and running back and forth, I'd look over and there's almost never anyone there. The parking lot is used during lunch, the volleyball courts are used during the summer once in a while, and an occasional rental for a graduation party here and there, but for the most part, we forget that park even exists. We propose grooming of a cross-country ski trail through the park. We have discussed with the local trails group to help us get this going, and this would be done at our cost and free to the community to use. We would just like to see activity there and know that this was something that would really bring a new value to that park. Classes that introduce people to outdoor recreation, assisting with further development of the park's master plan. Originally, when Casey was talking about his vision for what he wanted to do, we had no idea that a parks plan existed. And after we started looking into the building and read through the master plan that was created in 2004, so it's been a while, so many things almost mirror what he has planned to do and would just tie in very nicely and help you achieve that goal, those goals that you set forth in 2004, and maybe help some of those come to fruition sooner rather than later. And then a percentage of our profits, we had talked about doing this. This isn't just because of this building. We had talked about doing this right from the beginning, giving back to our community, kind of like a tithe to the community that supports us. And we would, in turn, if this was made a reality, we would donate that percentage directly to the Mishikiwas Park Improvement Plan. So you could start crossing some of those things off of the list. And then, to close, we would certainly report back to you on a regular basis as to how our business is affecting the community, how we are creating lasting change, and how this is really making an impact and bringing to life some of the branding principles that we have adopted as a community of being an adventurous community that is full of relaxed adventure and getting people out and getting them active. On a side note, I am not leaving my job. I've been asked that a couple of times. I'm still working for the CVB. My board knows that I'm here, but I'm just helping support my spouse and get this dream that he has off the ground and working.
Mary Beth is the Vision Wrangler.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few. I really appreciate what you've got. I asked for the mission of your thing. I went on your webpage today. I follow you on Facebook already, both of you all, so I kind of had an idea of what you've been doing. I know that you travel quite a bit. the thing, what I guess I'm afraid of, and I like the vision that you have, I think it's a great capacity for that building. The issue I guess I have is that I don't know what I don't know. So the master plan for the park that you mentioned a couple of times, I just got today. And I could have known that before, but I didn't know to know that. So I just got that today. I did go over it really fast this afternoon. So you seem to be correct with what you're stating. A lot of the things that were talked about in this planning. The planning for this, if you don't know, seemed to be a lot like the plaza. Planning for the plaza, they had meetings, they had public input. They had an entire class or a couple classes of fifth graders. They had a lot of adult supervision. They had community members, planning commission. So the two councilwomen are probably more established in this than I am. But I went over it. I looked at it. For the most part, the plan kind of just calls for a nicer park, if you will, with some activities that are Four Seasons, like you said. So I guess putting it simply, there were a couple other ideas. There's always been the lingering RV park idea, which I'm not completely opposed to.
Well, that's
I'm one of
probably
those
not
guys.
something we'd be
So.
able to fund on that level.
No,
But there
I
are
don't know.
things
I'm just saying.
like ice climbing tower,
Yeah.
better access to the water, kayak launch, things like that.
Which brought me to the couple of things that I do know to ask, or that I wanted to ask. There are other activities, most specifically the volleyball. Volleyball is when that opens up, the Bud Light volleyball that's put on there is several days a week, and it's established, and there's a schedule, and people are down there to do that. Do you envision that there would be any issues with that? I think they're Thursdays,
yeah.
Tuesdays.
Tuesday, the under 18 is on Wednesday.
So,
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So that's-
Our use of the green space or the open areas of the park would be totally dependent on what else is already going on there. We would filter around that.
okay, so.
We want to get people in the park and get people active, but we know home is inside the building. So
Okay.
like, yes, we're, aware that we don't have free reign over the whole
Yeah.
thing. And that's not the goal of the idea, but just to be able to so quickly go outside and interact and have space to utilize and.
Right, and I assumed you were that way, that someone's flying a kite out in the lawn, you're not gonna chase them off to do something, what they're doing. I know, I just wanted to make sure that the things, and that volleyball is the only thing that I'm completely aware of, because I play. But I don't know, and Rich would wanna make sure that if there are any other planned events, and obviously there aren't, but if there are, just to make sure that everybody's coinciding together.
And we had talked within the first year, like if there's anything that comes up that's already, we'd be happy to accommodate to the best of our abilities and make that work for people. Because we don't want, again, we want this to be very, very synergistic. This is meant to add to the community and not to upset anybody or ruffle any feathers or put anybody out.
How, I was gonna ask you what you expected your, and I didn't read it in here as far as what your time of operation, 7 days a week, 6 days a week,
We're looking
5?
at 6 days a week just to make sure that, the staff has a full day of rest and recovery and that's very important to me, that they have time to enjoy their families. And kind of part of our mission is that, we want to help people get active, and we think weekends are great times for people to get active. So we want to help promote that. We might do events here or there, but we definitely will be full operations during the weekdays, and then on Saturdays is our initial plan as of right now. The rentals would be a little bit different. Obviously, weekends is prime time for
Right.
that. So we want to make sure that if we're offering something that is directly in line with leisure activities, that it be offered at a time that people have leisure time. So we want to make sure that, that the weekends and busy hours and busy seasons, that is something that's given on those days.
And the other, I guess, one of the other concerns that I had were improvements to the park itself, and that might be, and that's not something that you're going to be doing right away, but I guess from a city standpoint, that we're very careful with what improvements are made and what channels those go through.
We would work
before they
very
get made
closely
and
with the
things.
city in terms of, we're
any of the
improvements
exterior improvements within the park
would
would
be
go
this,
through Rich, myself.
Okay.
Depending upon what they are, they may have to come to council as well. But we'd basically be looking at keeping the focus on the master plan, knowing that it isn't going to be exactly what that plan is. We've already seen that when we developed the pavilion and restrooms. If you look at the master plan, that's not where they were envisioned, so things change. But the general concept is still there and that we would keep. But that is still, it is a public park, and so any of those changes would have to be, or any additions, any improvements would have to be with the approval of the city. Even the improvements within the building, we've had discussions with them, ultimately they're gonna, we'll have to approve those, because they will stay with the city, if in 5 years or 10 years, they decide to move out or whatever, that, that we still have a functional building.
And just to be clear, the improvements to the park in the city are to 100% give back to the community and make this a more conducive place to live for active individuals. So if we have things that people can go out and explore and experience, adventure and excitement and do these things, so it is to help add more to the city that we live in and make it a wonderful place to live. These are things that, when Mary Beth said when we saw the plan and we're like, wow, all these things fit, there are things that we had talked about, like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we had this, or wouldn't it be great if we had this? And, our part of the master plan is if we can help people move better so that they can enjoy these things, but then if they're there for them to be able to enjoy. So we want to use that to support the community as a whole, not necessarily, these aren't things that are going to directly support our business.
Basically, for the outdoor park part, we would give you money, and then you would say, all right, let's use this to do this.
Okay, and that would filter
So we're not gonna
through
go buy a play
engineering
structure and put it out there and say, hey, there you go. It would just be, we are making a donation to the park,
Right.
and then together you can decide, all right, well, this would make
Best course
sense
of
to
action.
chunk this off and do this one, or maybe we should build up for a couple years and tackle this. It's not really, that wouldn't be really our decision.
Yeah. That was, and then I just had a couple of questions about the contract itself. You've reviewed the contract already?
I have.
And then I guess I'll turn it over. I'm taking it over. Maybe I'm asking stuff you guys have. Under the rent, it says rent shall be as follows. It goes over the monthly payment of $600, including utilities or as amended, and then it goes down into the costs associated with operation of the proposed new air conditioning system, if installed, will be borne by the performance locker. And then the third I, it says, number 3, it says, these rates also include the investment that will be made in building improvements that will be retained by the city of Alpena following the termination of the lease. And I understand that improvements will be retained by the city, but what I don't understand, I guess, is these rates also include the investment.
I can.
That means
I can
they're
answer
outside
that.
of-
We have requested that it be a tiered approach to a lease agreement. So for the first 3 years, the rent is a little bit less, so that we can have an opportunity to make back our investment. Because since we will never own the building, we're basically dumping $30,000 into a building we'll never own.
Oh, don't say never.
Yeah. No, no.
Okay, so that's why, okay,
That's
because I
why.
did see that it's $600 a month for the first 3 years and $1,000 for year 4 and 5 with the option to renew at the end of 5.
Yep.
And that's what that means down there where it
Yes.
says these rates also include the investment that would be
Yes, and
made.
depending on what
Okay.
utilities are, it may be adjusted.
Okay, then I get
Since
that.
it's been vacant for so long,
Yeah.
nobody really
Yeah.
has a good idea of what they might be.
We said we would review utilities each year. Since the building's never been air conditioned, those costs, they agreed to any utility costs associated with that, that we would do.
And
Or they would
she is
cover.
correct.
She is correct.
Correct.
It's good.
That's what it was intended.
And then my last one, I think, is, it says, right under that, it says, this payment shall be due in advance by the 5th of each month. My question is, the next part that says, the first month shall be prorated based on the start date of the operation. So am I to understand that you would be making improvements? What does start date of operation?
So it's the 7th today, so we missed the 5th for this month. So if you agree to this and we can begin the agreement, then we would be in Wednesday or next week or something. That would be the start date. So that would be the first month
Okay.
of kind of.
I just wasn't sure if start date of the operation meant the start date of your operation or the start date of when you open your door.
We are hoping to open by the 1st of June, the first week of June.
So what you're
We are
doing would be
shooting
pretty
for.
fast.
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, they will be, in essence, paying rent during the construction period as well.
Okay.
Yes.
But it would be prorated the first month depending upon when the lease is actually signed.
Okay, and I'll let everybody else go, of course.
Thank goodness.
There again, I guess, sorry, I just, it's a lot. It's very, and I think it's a very positive thing. We just got all this on Friday, so it was a lot just to comprehend, but it was quite understandable after we got some of the additional paperwork. But there
That's why we
again,
had the marketing department put together those wonderful flyers for you.
all right, the marketing department.
Marketing department.
That's what I thought.
I'm still waiting to be paid.
But I'll let it go.
The mayor kind of touched on the couple concerns I had. And the biggest is just how you would treat public use. I don't want Casey chasing kids around with a jump rope, running them out of there. But
Well, sometimes they pay for stuff like that.
Well, that's usually private lessons. I think we could work that out. And what I appreciate is that you guys have kind of come to us with more of a partnership other than, hey, can we lease the space? And to be honest, you're offering more than I would have as a business. So in knowing you guys a little bit and hearing you, I really do think that you're in it obviously for business, but you are in it to help this community. And I think you can see that in some of the language that you asked for in the lease agreement. Certainly see that in what you guys have done in the past. And it is going to border on corny, but you're the type of people that we should want to support. You're young, you have kids, you're community minded, you're educated, you're trying to do the right things. I think Jim would agree with that these are the type of entrepreneurs that we want here. With that said, I know when the Bay Athletic Club came that it helped our community. It made a difference. And certainly what you're proposing, it's similar, but you offer, different things, I think, for a different group of people to come out and get active and healthy and maintain that lifestyle. So regardless of what the community makes on the lease agreement, I think what you can bring as far as health and getting people active, and you've talked about is worth much more than that. If you start looking at the lakefront, you're going to have this healthy, active park with people out there doing things, and we do have the volleyball in the back, but besides that, it's fairly empty there. But you go down the Starlight, there's a lot of families and kids, and Thompson tends to be teenagers, and Bayview is younger people, and you really have a system where it's vibrant and everybody can get involved. Where you're looking at, there's businesses in that area that I think would benefit greatly by having just more people down there and more activity that can come across the street and next door and things like that. So I'm certainly excited about it, and I think you guys will be successful. I think you both have a good track record in Alpena, and I hope to see it go and you fulfill a lot of what you want to do, and I think it'll be a big improvement.
Very good. I have a couple of questions. Will you offer retail sales? For instance, if I want to purchase cross-country skis, or you will?
Our plan is to work up to that, maybe not within the first year.
But eventually?
Yeah.
That's the plan. How many employees will you have?
In the beginning, probably 5.
Yeah.
Some will be part-time, but again, it's one of those things we're going to grow into. And I know it's kind of a little hard to comprehend, but we're not going to be a gym, so we're not going to have 1,000 members.
Right.
We may, throughout the course of a year, affect 500 people. But that will be awesome, because what we are offering is more personalized and a more personal approach. So it'll be
Do you offer memberships?
Yes.
Is that what you offer?
Yeah, so we want to keep
Memberships?
things as easy as possible for people to get
Yeah.
involved, so there'll be different ways and price points.
More memberships, and you can drop in for anything if you want, just out of the blue.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a member.
And special short-term programming, so like 6-week this or 8-week that for specific goals.
And rentals is for anybody. You don't have,
Right.
that's sort of separate. Yeah.
Pretty awesome. I'm really, really excited. I see so many kids roaming up and down State Street, and what a great idea. I'm really excited about it. Good deal.
Well, a couple of things that I just want to make a couple of points on. First of all, if I have this correct, or if I don't, please correct me, that Alpena County currently ranks 78th out of 84 counties for fitness.
I just read that.
I didn't really believe
Yeah.
that personally, but.
Yeah, you know, it's so.
Well, they've never met us.
That being said, my point was on that is that I think that as a council, there's a couple things we should do, and one of those is always whatever we can do to point or help toward personal fitness and a better quality of life for all of us. So that's one of my points. The other thing that I wanted to remind council of is back in January, we're all looking for ways to implement different areas of our comprehensive plan. And under our waterfronts, in Chapter 8, on page 8-20, goal number 1 states, emphasize the city's waterfront by coordinating and complementing private development while improving recreational opportunities, tourism, and the overall economy. So with that, I think this fits that very, very well. The other thing that I like about this, obviously, is that nothing says more that you're open and ready for business than actually complementing and doing things that we can control to have new businesses come into this area. So I too favor this.
Everyone has said just about everything, but I think this is exciting. I'm glad that you thought outside of the box, and I think this is going to be a great partnership.
Just one thing I'll point out, we did send out some information. I don't know if it went to everybody, but I know at least certainly to Cindy, because she asked directly in terms of what has been a rental history of the, at the shelter. And for this year, it says 7, and if you look at the lease, it says 5. I know at least one of those additional ones was one that was actually already occurred, and it may be that 2 of them have, and that's why there's a discrepancy in the numbers. The 5 that we know of, that before we stopped any future one, are all in the future. So they'll be after a lease would be signed, and we said those need to be honored, those commitments. The others, at least I know of one, and probably the second, have already occurred, so they were leased, but they aren't going to impact this particular project.
And just so everyone knows, I asked for those because I wanted to know the usage of that building for the
Okay.
last few years,
Yeah.
to see if we were overstepping something that maybe we shouldn't, but they're relatively low.
Yeah. And on some of them, they've moved from that area to the pavilion, where they used to rent that facility. They've now rent the pavilion in the area around, and use the area around that. And so, that's probably affected, as you saw, I think about 4 years ago, it was at 22, and then it's dropped off to 14 and 16.
16, and
Yeah.
then this year's half year, so.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was glad you asked because that was a concern that I had. And you've obviously gone over, you already know when those dates are,
Yeah.
the 5. Because that was a concern of mine that, even though looks like an average of 16 or 15 a year, and that's probably about how many warm weekends we have in the summer, but they didn't always, then I started to think we didn't always have that opportunity. We have since Mishkewa's ice arena closed, or the barn closed, but I don't think anybody, did they?
Yeah.
Did people rent it in the summertime?
Yeah,
even when
they still would.
Like back in 2000 and stuff?
Often graduation parties, once in a while reunion. I know Ella White used to hold their no detention convention there, because my daughter, that's where they held it. That's what I think they moved over and are using the pavilion now instead, rather than the warming shelter itself. So, yeah, those activities, but a lot of them have been centered around either the end of the school year or June, early July with mainly with graduation parties.
Yeah.
So they would use it for 4 or 5 hours, like on a Saturday, and that was it.
Well, we also have the building over at the baseball fields that people rent. What is
At
it?
McCray?
Yeah, at McCray.
Yes. And
So
that-
the option is still there to rent use the building.
Greg, I'm pretty sure I'm looking at the answer to this, but I'd rather hear it. If the KC shows somebody how to cross-country ski, and somebody takes off on their skis and the public park breaks their leg, that's on their insurance,
We have
right?
insurance for that.
I'm not sure whether, you know, we also have liability insurance because the master plan, you know, talked about developing a cross-country ski there. If we did put ice skating in, if that developed to get an outdoor rink, like shown on the master plan, our liability insurance would have to be there to cover for accidents. Same if we had, you know, ice climbing, or if you developed it, you know, let's face it, if something happens, they sue everybody. And then it's a matter of working out afterwards, you know, who's actually the responsible party. That's his job.
Well, and he could go down
So.
even without leasing the building in the middle of the winter
Right.
and teach somebody how to cross-country ski and kind of go through that whole thing as a business, so that's your business.
I mean, yeah, if somebody just goes out and cross-country skis or snowshoes on their own and something happened, there is that possibility, because it is our property, that there would be some liability there, but, so that's always there, that's why we have the insurance.
Yeah, like I said, I'm very supportive. I'm just always a bit apprehensive on what I don't know to ask and what I don't know. Everybody seems very in favor, of getting a reaction that everyone is looking to be comfortable with taking an action. I'll take comfort in the fact that we've spent quite a bit of time with the engineering department and with Greg, and if they had any deep concerns about this, then they'd have probably let us know by now, I would assume. So, it's a great project.
Looking for a motion?
Entertain a motion if
All
someone
right.
would like to do so.
All right.
I move we join in a lease between the City of Alpena and Performance Locker LLC for use of Mishikiwish Warming Shelter with Mary Beth and her fine husband, and moving on.
And I give a strong second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Congratulations.
Thank you for an awesome business plan.
We brought a few early adopters. Thank you.
Awesome.
I heard what the crowd was all about. Okay, I gotta find my spot real quick here.
We're done saying yes for the evening. We've been doing that all.
Oh, no.
That's here for fire and EMS staffing.
Well, while we're on the theme of community growing and positive things, we also are growing and have some positive things to report. The ambulance transfer program has been very successful, providing needed services to the community and establishing an additional revenue stream to help offset the cost of providing exemplary emergency services. When the system was developed in 2010, off-duty personnel on overtime were used to facilitate the transfer operation pending further analysis. That was a wise move at the time, so that if it turned out it didn't work, we could pull back and no harm, no foul. Although this model was the most costly, it has still resulted in a financially viable program. The unintended consequence, however, has been dramatically increased work weeks for employees, resulting in safety concerns from fatigue and an unhealthy imbalance between work and home responsibilities. After careful review and with the concurrence of the city manager and clerk, treasurer, finance director, really long title, Karen, I'm requesting authorization to hire 3 additional personnel. This would increase our shift staffing to a minimum of 8 personnel per day, enabling us to provide local and long-distance transfers and emergency services with on-duty personnel and reducing overtime significantly. Most importantly, it will enhance the safety of our employees and citizens. The positions will be funded by overtime savings and ambulance billing revenue and are accounted for in the 14-15 proposed draft budget. IAFF Local 623 is supportive of this request, and joining us this evening we have Brett Miller, Local 623 Executive Board member. Say hi, Brett. And 2 of our mobile intensive care paramedics, Matt Miller and Tim Slosser in the back. This is a no-lose situation. It's very costly to do it with overtime, but we're doing it and we're doing it well. The program has grown, the volume has gone up, both on the local level and on the long-distance level, but we have had some problems. One of the problems that I'm very concerned about is that the guys are so tired because they work so many hours a week that they're not able to maintain the A-team game all the time. It's very hard to do when you're working 60, 80 hours a week. 56 is normal with no overtime, and they're doing a lot of overtime. That's not good. It's not good for the organization, it's not good for the employees. And so I'd really like to reduce that. But there are other benefits. It would allow us to increase our shift strength for emergency services. It would increase our emergency resources for fire and EMS, allowing us to get more resources to the scene more quickly. It'll increase the efficiency of the transfer program and therefore the customer service so that there should be no waiting involved. There's always people available. It should improve employee and citizen safety and increase the quality of the family balance that's there. I'm really concerned that they're working all the time, and so they don't have time for that balance that's needed for the families. And the costs, again, are covered by the savings to overtime, about $300,000 worth, and ambulance revenue. So it doesn't cost anything. Now, the one deal stopper would have been a no layoff clause in the contract that says that we don't lay off as long as we provide ambulance service. The union has been...
County ambulance.
County ambulance service, yes. The union has been gracious to sign an MOU with us clarifying that that's the 24 people that were here when the contract was signed. That doesn't count people added after. So these people could be laid off if they had to be. And the reason for that is that the transfer operation is fluid. It has good times and bad times. If times were really bad, we've got to be able to react to that. Just like right now, times are really good and we need to be able to react to that. So it gives us the management flexibility to do what we need to do. I've had a chance to brief a couple of you and answer a couple of questions. Several from behind bars today, the mayor and Cindy and Eric Camp from the PD. But no, seriously, we were at the senior center today. It was a great time. Are there any other questions that I can help you with?
I'll tell you, Chief, it's a great report. And I did have the opportunity to talk to Chief a little bit today at the senior center. Pretty much answered all my questions. So it contains the no layoff clause, is taken care of, it has union support, there's a cost savings, and it's safe.
That's the main thing for me too, is what my first and foremost, even if the cost had to increase slightly, if it's safer for the guys and that we've got, well-staffed department and everyone is, able to stay healthy and be able to commit to that. So I think this is a good move as well. I speak in favor of it.
Absolutely. Want them on top of their game when they're going out. And the transfers are going well still? You're working well?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they increasing?
We've seen a tremendous increase in long-distance transfers and
Right.
critical care transfers, and the local transfers are stable. They're kind of plateaued at this point.
Now, will these three new guys be educated and able to do long-distance transfers?
Yes,
So that
they're
you
gonna
can
be
relieve some of your
trained
people?
exactly the same and certified exactly the same as everybody else, so that everyone is cross-trained and able. Now, we do have a small elite team of critical care guys. There are only 7 of the 24 people there now that are critical care certified, and 2 of them are right there. That's an additional significant amount of education, and we probably won't train the new guys to do that because our A-team, so to speak, is really good at that. And what we discovered, originally the plan was to train a whole department. And what we discovered was that you need to have call volume in order to keep your skills up. And there aren't enough calls to keep the whole department proficient. So we have just a little sub-team that does that critical care stuff. And then everybody else is paramedic and firefighters both, and will be able to function on all levels. So it's really very interchangeable.
Very good, very good. Sounds like a good plan.
Thank you.
Chief, just from a financial standpoint, just for clarification, your argument is to have 3 full-time people on staff would be cheaper than paying overtime to who we already have, right?
Right.
Is it cheaper?
Or at least a
It's
wash.
actually not cheaper. It's about $30,000 off. But that $30,000 is made up in other areas, so it does even out.
And you did mention that they wouldn't fall under the no
layoff clause. We have no intention of laying off, of course, but we need the management flexibility as the case.
Would it be possible to tie those positions into the revenue that the department brings in, or would you rather stay away from that?
I'd rather stay away from it, but I wanted to have the flexibility so that if we saw a big dive, we could realign if we had to. But I don't really want to see them directly tied, because they won't just be doing transfers. They're going to be firefighter, paramedics, like everybody else, doing all of the services that we provide.
Good.
All right. Ready to action on that as well?
I move we authorize Chief Forbush to hire 3 additional personnel and increase our shift staffing to a minimum of 8 personnel.
Second.
Oh,
Go ahead.
The tie goes to the runner.
Which one?
Cindy.
That covers what you need?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
You ready?
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Thank you, Chief.
I think that's it. I move we adjourn to closed session.
Second.
You are watching All About Alpena.